So what's number 5? Number 5, strength built by empowerment. This is my favorite topic on leadership, hands down, favorite topic, absolute favorite, and it's a lot of reasons why. But the most important reason is that empowerment is all about building other leaders up. And this is when you learn how to lead leaders. So important, because a lot of leaders are missing this facet in their business, or they're missing this facet in their life, or they're missing this facet with their children. But when you're a leader who understands how to lead leaders, you try to get the people that's trying to follow you. You don't want them to just listen and do. You want them to listen, learn, and do so they can teach. And that's the mindset of empowerment. This is where we get into the realm of professional leadership. Because I see so many leaders all of the time, I see them missing it. They're missing the boat because they're afraid and they're insecure to empower people. They believe that if I empower you and make you just as good as me, then what happens to me? I become indispensable. But great leaders, they don't think about it like that. They don't think about leadership as a place to hold people down. They think about it as leadership as a place to lift people up. And if you can see how great you would be by lifting a ton of leaders up instead of holding them down only supports you. And if you're in your position to only support you, then you are a horrible leader. I'm sorry to say it, and I don't want to say it in a negative way. And this one gets me passionate, because I see so many leaders that are not doing the thing that's necessary in order to lead people on a great level. They're leading on an average level because they're saying, I want it to be easy. But leadership is not easy. It's easy to get followers. It's easy to get people. Look, think about Twitter. All you need to do is click a button. I'm following you now. It's easy to get followers to follow you. It's hard to get leaders to follow you because leaders have their own ideas. Leaders have their own ambitions. They have their own way of doing things. They have their own experiences prior to even coming under your leadership. They have all of these things. Really, what it is a leader has their own brain and their own way of thinking. So now your job as a leader is to get that other leader to get aligned into your vision and your way of thinking. That's difficult, so most leaders run away from it. Most leaders run away from it because it's too hard, it's too tough, it's too difficult. It's not just, hey, what I say goes. It's, hey, how can I bring you into the fold? It's so important for a leader. If they want to get into the realm of professional leader, they've got to get this down. They've got to understand how to lead leaders. Because I can tell how great of a leader you are, not by the number of followers you have, but the amount of leaders that you have. So let's get into it. How do you lead leaders? Because once I finish this, you're going to be sending this video to the top leaders you know. You're going to be sending this video to some of your peers because it's so important to get these keys down and getting leaders to actually move in the same direction as you. And if you've ever led leaders before, you know that it's easier said than done. So let's go ahead and say it, but then let me show you how to do it, right? So what's number 1? Confidence. If you want leaders to follow you, you have to be confident. You have to have what the young people call a swagger. You have to have a confidence inside of you that says, I know where I'm going, and where I'm going is right. I know that my vision is aligned. I know that we're going to achieve it. Look, leaders respond to confidence. If you are expecting other leaders to follow you, when you're going to them and asking them, hey, how do you think we should do ... And now don't get me wrong, you're always going to bring other leaders into the fold, and I'm going to talk about that. But when it comes to the vision, you got to be confident and solid on your vision and your walk and what you're going after. Because the minute you have a chink in your armor of a lack of confidence, what other leaders will look at, they will look at it as a sign of lack of belief within you. And if they look at it as a sign of lack of belief within you, then they have a hesitancy on continuing to follow, or they start to follow with caution because they're not sure if you believe. But when you have confidence, they know you believe. They know that you're going in the right direction because you believe you're going in the right direction. You built up the trust within them to have them buy into that vision, but you got to be confident. What's the second thing? You got to know what you're doing. I mean, you just got to know what you're doing. I mean, leaders, they're not going to follow you if you have no clue. You might have the greatest vision in the world, but if you have no clue how to achieve it, then they're not going to follow you. I mean, even if you're kind of good, even if you understand a little bit about what you're doing, if you don't understand this at a high level, if you don't know what you're doing at a high level that's higher than the rest of your team, then they're not going to follow. The leaders are not going to follow you. They're going to constantly be trying to create systems that they feel are better than the systems that you have because your systems are not good enough and they feel like you don't know what you're doing. So you have to be able to lay out a process that shows that you know what you're doing, that you've been there before, that you've experienced it. So many people are trying to take others down a path that they've never been. You can't take other people down a path that you've never been. So leaders smell that out right away. So if you're trying to get followers, you'll get followers that go down a path that you've never been. You'll never get a massive amount of leaders to follow you down a path that you've never been. They don't believe it because they can sniff it out. You got to know what you're doing. Well, number 3, you got to talk to them like leaders. Now, this is funny because I've got so many experiences of leaders who don't talk to other leaders like leaders. They talk to them like followers. And I'm trying to figure out the best way to explain this without being harsh. But if you have somebody who has a certain level of understanding, speak to their level of understanding. It's like a college student. If your followers are normally high school students, and then you have a college student who becomes one of your leaders, you don't talk to the college student in a way that you would talk to the high school student. You talk to the college student because if you're the college professor, then you talk to the college student as a college student and not as a high school student. But so many leaders miss this point because they think that you talk to everybody the same. They think that you give everybody equal attention. Leadership is not an equal opportunity sport. That you don't treat one person the same as you treat the other person. Now that might sound harsh, but here's the truth. Everybody's different. You got one person who comes from a certain nationality, a certain age, and certain experiences, and certain gender, and certain things that go for this person that are not the same for this person. So how could you treat them exactly the same? They got different goals. They got different desires. You treat every person differently. So the same thing when it comes to leadership. You can only have a broad message to the masses if you have a direct message to the leadership. And your direct message to the leadership has to be on their level. You have to talk to them on their level. It's a sign of respect as well because people are sitting there and they're saying, look, I hear what you're saying, but that's the same thing you told these guys and they just got started. That's the same thing you told these people and they don't even know the system yet. They don't know how the strategy works. They don't know the vision of the company. They don't know where we're going long term. They haven't been here for the long term. They haven't experienced what we've experienced. You can't talk to everybody the same, especially when it comes to leadership. You've got to talk to your leaders like leaders. Most leaders mess that up. So what's number 4? You got to be honest about the SOU. I call it the State of the Union. Wherever your company is at, your organization is at, your family is at, if your leaders, the people who you trust, the people you brought close to you and you said, hey, I consider you to be my best leaders. Your best leaders, you got to be honest with the State of the Union with them. Now, these are people that you trust as well. Not just people that trust you, but people that you trust. And the people that are in your inner circle. You've got to have a real talk with them. You got to have straight talk. The State of the Union, here's where we are. Like the president says in the State of the Union, he says, hey, America, here is where we're at. Here's what's going on. Here's what's happening in our country. Hey, I'm trying to lay it all out on the table so you know. You got to do that for your leaders. You've got to sit down and say, hey guys, here's where we're at, whether it's good or bad. Now, some people say, well, I'm going to share with them the good, but I don't want to talk about the bad. I don't want to talk about how we missed our quarterly numbers last quarter. I don't want to talk about how our numbers are down and we're kind of afraid that we're not going to hit our revenue goals. I'm not going to talk about how we're in a predicament right now where it's real tough and we don't know how we're going to get through. I'm not going to talk about how we're kind of lost as far as direction is concerned and our vision is getting a little bit shaky and we might need to pivot, but we don't know when we're going to pivot. I'm not going to talk about those things. You can't remove your leadership from that conversation. They have to be involved. You know why? It's because one person doesn't have the answers. If you have multiple leaders, if you don't trust them enough to give you the honest feedback to say, hey, here's what we can do to get us out of this State of the Union. Here's what we can do to move ourselves closer to our goals. They have to have input because it might be something that they input that helps you get out of the situation that you're in. But you've got to be willing to have them involved in that process, which means you have to be honest. Honesty, I'm telling you, most people are missing it. Number 5, you got to trust them. So if you're going to be honest with them, you got to trust them, right? You have to trust that they're going to be able to hold on and not tell the world. There's a reason why leaders don't tell the entire world everything that's going on wrong with the company. Because most people will overreact. Because most problems that are going on and might be going wrong might be solved in 3 weeks. And it's not a need to bring it to other people and make other people worry about something that they shouldn't have to worry about. So you want to be able to trust them to not just hold on to the things that you tell them, but you want to be able to trust that they can handle it. You know, some leaders, they might not have gotten to the level of professionalism to where they might still be in the amateur realm, where if you tell them the State of the Union, they break down and they lose belief and they start to question your reputation and they don't know what to do. Sometimes you have to know who you can tell, what part of your leadership you can tell, what part of the leadership you can't. Look, I love the example of Jesus. Jesus had 3, then he had 12, then he had 72, then he had 120. He didn't tell the 120 the same things he told the 3. See, you got to have the 3, you got to have the 12. You got to have those people who are close enough to you where you can tell them what you need to tell them. And in some of those 12, you might not be able to tell them everything, but you can tell these 3 because these 3 are in with you. You got to know who you can tell. Who can you be honest with? And this is really a test, a litmus test to who your true leadership is. Because if you say, hey, I got 10 core leaders, I got people in my organization or in my business that I consider top leaders, but I can't trust them with the State of the Union, you might have to pull back off of saying that they're your top leaders. You might have, 3 top leaders and 10 people who are in potential to become a top leader but haven't reached that place yet. So you got to be able to trust them, right?